for your time, connecting from all over the world. We're very excited to be speaking to you today. My name is Martin Mahler. I'm Vizlib CEO, and today I'm here together with Joe Worthington.
Hey everybody, good to hear from you. Thanks for joining us. We have an enormous crowd, and I bet Martin and the team at Vizlib yesterday if we could get over 1,000 people that maybe he would give me a gift or we can rally behind a charity. So I think we are going to be able to donate $1,000 to one of our favorite organizations we've worked with for a while now, Mercy Ships. So thank you so much. And you'll hear more about Mercy Ships in the future too.
Wonderful. And actually an overwhelming registration count and overwhelming attendance on the webinar today. I'm very glad actually the client didn't crush. But yeah, today we're going to talk to you about Writeback. So I'm going to turn off my webcam, just make sure you remain all very. But before I begin about Writeback, I'm not sure if you've noticed, but say hello to the Vizlib new look. We have a new logo. We have new product icons and new colors, and if you haven't seen it already, a whole new website, which you should check it out right after the webinar. So yeah, we're very excited about this. I mean, rebrands, refreshes happen for a reason, but ultimately it's been time for Vizlib, not just because we've grown so much from, a little team of 4 people to over 63 employees today, but also we have many more products on our offering that actually are doing so much more than data visualization. So ultimately, we are here and we're doing much more and bring much more value to Vizlib, to Qlik, and hence, yeah, this exciting piece of news. So starting with Writeback today, which is a very, 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 very interesting topic, and I think very close to a lot of people. We'll cover a couple of slides to kind of show you a little bit where we're coming from, why we did what we did, introduce the new collaboration, reimagined, but then as always, we're going to spend a lot of time on demos, and Joe has prepared some really, really great stuff. And of course, Q&A at the end. Very important, everybody, to keep you all engaged. We will be handing off some polls and getting you guys to participate and answer some questions live in action. So with this, I am kicking off the story of Writeback. So the story of Writeback actually is as old as Qlik itself. And I'm not even kidding, Qlik view times, right? So as a matter of fact, when I was researching about Writeback, and I even found a little post that I did myself back in 2014. This is a very, very old picture of mine. Back then, I just got started with Qlik view, but it just showed, that there always has been a very inherent interest in writing back data from Qlik. And I've been a consultant for many years. I know a lot of customers have very custom self-developed solutions. So as a matter of fact, this has been going on forever. But so why do people actually need Writeback? And us now as a product company, not as consultants, we have to think about, the deep roots of it. So the thing that we see is the need is that ultimately Qlik view today or Qlik Sense or Qlik is a one-way street. You're consuming data in your dashboards, in your analytics, but then what? If you want to react on that data or take what we call action, you ultimately have to do this in a different tool. You cannot do this directly in Qlik because it's read-only. So ultimately, effectively, you have to jump to a different tool, which means that this is a disconnected experience. Remember the chair, you go from one desk to another desk. That's not what we want. We want to close the analytics loop, and we want to bring everything together where the data is, meaning updating, editing the data, right? Directly where you see perhaps a quality issue or something that you wish to fix or adjust. And last but not least, remember, analytics is not anymore a single user experience. You're probably with more than 20, 30 users on a single dashboard analyzing your data. So why not bring the collective intelligence together and have a real-time discussion, real-time analytics on top of your data where the data is. So that's the need that we see in the market. That's the need that we see, our customers going to. But what are the challenges? Why hasn't there been, a very solid product just yet? So the thing is with Writeback is that this is always a very custom requirement, custom interface, custom workflow, certain database backend. So it's very, very difficult to make like a one-eats-all product in that particular case. It also means different things to different people. You know, when I ask Writeback, what do you mean? Is it comments, editing data, workflow, discussions? And last but not least, because you have to somehow store the data that you're writing back or you're commenting on, you require a backend, hence the solution is a little bit inherently complex, very often with a server. So it's difficult to create an off-the-shelf product that fits all, until now at Vizlib. So what is Writeback? So what we're going to do now is we're going to start a tiny little poll to get you guys engaged. And please have a look at the poll and just answer the first thing that comes into your mind. So you actually can click on your screen and you can submit something. And the thing is, right, that's the thing that we've been asking ourselves and a lot of our customers, and we've been receiving so many different responses that we actually thought, well, okay, let's kind of put that back to the audience to see. So
I'm glad to see people aren't picking a lot of the export to Excel. Every time that happens, like an angel loses its wings, that's what we used to say when I was at Qlik. But, you know, that's like the baseline for any software product.
True. Yeah. So as we're collecting the answers, thank you very much for submitting your options. Cool. Wonderful. We'll be sharing the results later on in the handouts. But you know, what is Writeback, right? So, you know, in technical terms, the thing that I've been hearing a lot, I decided to create a word cloud, right? Is it write, QVDs, tasks, database? Is it SQL, discussions, CSV? You know, it could mean any of those. But what about, you know, the business value? What's the kind of the business value proposition that we bring here? Same, you know, forecasting, data quality dashboards, P&L adjustments, budgeting, finance, planning. So there are a lot of use cases, which, you know, means that you have to create something generic enough that somehow gives you guys the tools to achieve all of it. And this is where we are today. And what we have done, we have basically collected everything into 3 individual solutions that will form the 360 analytics to action product on top of Qlik Sense to you. So with this, it is my utmost excitement to share with you and to announce and to unveil the Vizlib Collaboration reimagined. So what do we have? We have 3 extensions, 3 solutions, and 1 optional server that ultimately solves all your writeback needs. We start with Vizlib Teamwork, formerly known as Vizlib Collaboration. So you might have already seen this, but we've renamed this now, which is all about discussing with data, real-time conversations on your dashboards with bookmark selections and sharing. If you want to add new data, we create a solution what we call Vizlib Input Form, which is about submitting your data to a system of your choice. And then last but not least, I think one of the most important ones, the Vizlib Writeback table, which is all about writing and editing data in a published Qlik Sense app. And if you are an enterprise or if you wish to have a scalable, secure, and enterprise-ready deployment, we also have a Vizlib Server, which is all about managing that input data with, and I'll go through that later on with a couple of examples, but more importantly, the server is optional. As a matter of fact, Vizlib Collaboration also works serverless. We're writing back to QVDs, CSVs, text files, and only if you want to, you have to deploy to the server. So with this, 3 solutions, 1 server, your 360 analytics to action product from Vizlib. So let's go over to the demo, and I'm handing over to Joe, who will be taking it over from here.
Perfect. Thank you, Martin. So I have been working on this for a number of weeks, really excited. It's opened up so many boxes and so many things for me to work on that I couldn't just show you 1 or 2 applications. So no less than 8. And I'm going to fly through some of these. So get your screenshot fingers ready. But we're going to, I'll be happy to take you through a demo at any of these later. And the thought process around this is let's take you through a couple different industry solutions and also some use cases that we see are going to be pretty popular. But know that we're just scratching the surface here. and happy to work with you all. So I'm gonna grab control here and share my screen. I want this one. And then Martin, can you just confirm you can see Qlik Sense?
Give me 1 second. Yes, in Qlik Sense, thank you.
Perfect. So here are some of the applications I'm going to take you through. We're going to start with a life sciences one around clinical trials. Many of our organizations working around this. It's been a fun one for me because it has nothing to do with deaths and cases. It has more to do about finding the cure for COVID. And so scanning all this information, we have an application that our life science customers have been using to be able to look across studies and have a highly visual kind of interface here for clinicaltrials.gov. Maybe I'm interested in particular studies that are in the phase 4. They're in efficacy studies now. They're potential to be released to the market to the patients for a cure. So I can narrow in there. I can go over to the Gantt and I can see when these studies started on a nice project planning type of map, have drop lines and milestones. But really what I want to do here is find some information, and you're starting to see elements of collaboration now. And this is teamwork, as we've renamed it recently, that allows me to have a conversation with my team and I can share these insights. So if I'm looking at all of these studies that are currently recruiting, I'm going to alert my team to these in recruitment studies. I'm going to grab a particular screenshot. We'll just grab the phase 4 one. It's going to add that there. And I'm going to be able to also share this to my team in, say, Slack, and share that comment. Now, other conversations that I've had with the data allow me to jump back and look at, these 6 studies that are good candidates. It's actually updated because the data is flowing in. So I can come in here and I can say, with a little threaded conversation, we're now up to 11 studies. And having this threaded conversation allows me to pull these insights in, and we can have that conversation about our data inside of the application. There's no screenshots necessary. You don't have to export to Excel or PowerPoint. We want to keep that data alongside and tie it to the context. There are filters that are applied. There's our things. And then if I were to open up Slack or Teams or email, you'd actually see that insight with a nice link and bookmark back to the application with my selections. But that's the first step. That is having this conversation. And you can see here, Martin had a question about these observational studies. If I click on his comment, it's going to go through and put his particular view on the screen here with his selections. But I'm actually going to look at these particular 11 candidates and move over to Writeback. This is where we take it a step further, not just having a conversation about the data, but actually putting it to action. So with the Vizlib Writeback table, your employees will be able to follow a process, and that might be looking at particular studies, assigning the approver. Betty Davis is pretty popular. Assigning a risk for a particular phase of the study. Maybe it's high because we're experiencing some delays with COVID shipments. So I can put comments in, I have drop-down lists, I can change actually the numbers if I'm able to. Maybe we need to increase the study by 50 people. So Vizlib Writeback tables can take inputs and change them on the fly. And I have nice, neat interfaces for changing when we think these studies will wrap up. By writing this data, I'm now storing this into a QVD layer, which we know many of our organizations love and use in the Qlik framework. And that QVD, if you think about it, is going to be immediately used here in this application, but also other applications. So I could have an approver application where Betty can come in, she sees this list of information and can take that step to further this particular process. These are things that organizations were jumping between the analytics and another business system, or even Excel to do this type of work, sign-offs, approvals, moving it to the next phase. And now you can have that action and conversation right alongside your data. For this next one, more of an HR type of use case. You know, you're going to have to get your annual review, right? Everybody has to go through this. Maybe you dread that, and you're going to need to, you know, sit down with your friendly HR person. But what if they could have that conversation and back it up with some data? So you might have, you know, a sales performance app in your organization today that brings in revenue, products that you've sold, lists you on the box, and you can drag in to this information. But let's use that right alongside a performance review. So we're going to pick on Carl Anderson today. We see in the data, Carl is really good at selling pizza, hot dogs, and fresh fruit, but our higher margin items over here, I zoomed in a little too far, chocolate, eggs, and anchovies for some reason, he's not selling any of it. So he's doing really great, generated a ton of value, but we're gonna give him 4 stars and give him something to improve on, like selling, try selling our higher items, higher margin items. And then when I submit this, it actually sends it off to another system. So we have integration, say with Slack. And this allows me to take that insight. I'm gonna drag my screen over, and you're going to see immediately my particular performance review for Carl was sent to Slack. This could be to the HR channel, this could be to his manager, and we can see that information come along. So it's really tying the data together with a particular process. Next up, something for the administrators in the audience. This is something I wish I had years ago when I started working with Qlik, and that's the ability to manage section access without having to talk to a DBA, without having to you know, get into the script too much. So what if you could manage this visually? And so here's our section access manager, where we can add a brand new user to our permissions table. We're going to add in, you know, Adrian today, and we'll pull in Adrian's got a really easy username. He's going to be a user. We're not going to reduce any of the tables, but we're going to omit PHI, or protected health information, or PII. We'll add the user, immediately provisions Adrian, and I can come in here to another screen and I can see all of our users, and you'll be able to see here that, you know, Martin has admin access to section access. He can see everything. He has 0 reduction. We can see these other users listed here, like Felicia and I are only able to see our particular departments that we work in. We also cannot see PHI. So we're able to handle section access now and have a really nice interface for your administrators. Also giving the ability to take people out. We have the concept of insert, update, delete, overwrite in all of our write back capabilities. Take a breath here, double check where I'm at. We'll continue to fly through. This next one is something also that I've seen in other BI tools, not to be named, and a capability that I wish I had, because we usually resorted to dragging in our own spreadsheets or SharePoint lists, and that is the ability to create clusters or bins on the fly. So we have our nice and neat Vizlib scatter plot, which has automatic clustering built in. This is normally what a scatter plot would look like, but I can simply right click and cluster by a number of algorithms. I'm going to choose k-means. It's going to find this grouping, and maybe I want to look at cluster 1, this lower level. It's actually going to regroup it as I get into this. So these are our mid-tier items. I'm going to highlight these ones, and I'm going to give them a new name. These are our mid sellers. Name it what you want. We can bulk update items across the board. If I add the cluster, watch down here on the line chart, this cluster does not exist. As soon as I hit that, we save that data off, we save the cluster for reuse. It's not just a variable, it becomes available in our databases or in a QVD that we can use not only in this application, but also across the board. So here's how our mid sellers are tracking and trending, and this new particular cluster that I just built on the fly. If I wanted to remove this, I'll just clear all of my settings. When I go to remove products that have clusters, you'll see that Jonathan actually has clusters that he's created for different organizations, different groupings. I can't touch his, so there's security is built with this in mind, but I can clear out my personal set of clusters. So your administrators can control access to this, but you can also make sure that your users don't step on one another. So interaction with the visualizations is the key here. This opens up a lot of capabilities, I think, for organizations that know that their data doesn't have the organization levels or those groupings that might be necessary for your end users. Next thing, another ability to change the variables. So we don't have to write to QVDs. We don't have to write to a backend database. We can simply use this to have a really nice interface to the variables within Qlik Sense. And this is a concept that you might see around running simulations or scenarios. So I might change the slope of this line, set a constant. I can change dimensions or expressions, or even change the title of the line, new line. Yeah, very creative, and change the color, feeling purple today. If I submit this, it updates all of my values, and now I get that new line. This might not look that appealing, but when you get into things that I know our organizations are working on, particularly healthcare organizations, you can do things like this, which is something that we've seen from the Chime model for COVID, for updating and running simulations or predictions for your particular hospital system. And that's to set values and levels, change the number of beds that you have, what's the current infection rate or the length of stay, and then be able to see a forecast out on when you might hit your census and peaks and drops. Luckily, people seem to be taking a bit of a dive in a good way on the number of cases across the globe, but there are some, hot spots coming up. Being able to do this right alongside the data that you have allows you to take models that are out there in the marketplace and wire them into your organization. That was a major piece of criticism I've seen with these other models that are out online free of charge, is it's not about your environment, it's not about your organization. So you need to be able to bring in your own data, create fields on the fly, and tie it into your particular system. Didn't want to leave the finance folks out, and this is something that, the last time I showed a finance example, people were clapping. This was at the Data Revolution Tour last year, to have a P&L on steroids, the ability to see this information in a highly formatted way, customized to their unique workflows, with the ability to be very dynamic. But now we've added write-back capabilities to this. So if I have my P&L and I want to make some adjustments, let's say we're going to pick on Sweden today. We can see what the actual values are, and maybe I want to make an adjustment now. So their license fees are actually going to drop 1,000 Swedish kroner, and we're going to actually increase their maintenance a bit, because the Swedes like to take all that time off for midsummer, and that means we have to maintain their system a bit more. So I made some adjustments here. This is the Vizlib Writeback table, so I can update multiple rows at a time, but I'll stick with just those two. As soon as I make this write-back adjustment, it's going to put it into the table on the left-hand side. It's going to store this, and every time you use write-back, there's actually an audit log that is tracked. And I'll just clear my selection here at the bottom, and you will see an audit adjustment audit trail, or an adjustment audit trail. You can see I just put in some of these adjustments for Sweden at maintenance and licenses. It tells me how much I adjusted it past the particular actuals. These processes, again, normally in a budgeting system, some other thing where you have to bounce between your analytics, now can be brought right alongside the data. On the last one, before I pass it back to Martin to show us how we can build these things and build out these particular tables or forms, is another one that's near and dear to my heart in healthcare, and that's telehealth. For years, I'd worked on the healthcare team at Qlik, and we were talking about the value of telehealth and how you should try to find patients that might be, enrollees or potential candidates for telehealth. Well, today, everybody is a candidate for telehealth, and we've seen enormous increases. So this application has taken on a brand new life. It's not about enrolling patients. It's now everybody's basically enrolled from the get-go. Let's look at the patients that we should screen for COVID. Should they come into our clinic? Are they at risk? Let's look at those that are already in the system. We can see their chronic disease registries. We'll pick the ones that have COPD or a lung condition. We'll see of these 12 patients, they all have COPD and they're enrolled. So I don't need to enroll them in telehealth, but I can start screening these patients. So I can add them to the telehealth program, or I can actually use the Vizlib input form as a type of survey. So I have to pick a single patient to use the form. So we'll pick just one off this list. I'll just go with this top one here. And this patient, 357812, is a 60-year-old that doesn't have diabetes, that doesn't have CHF, but does have COPD, matching the filters that I've had. Now, what do we do when you have telehealth? Let's call the patient. So we're going to call the patient here. We pull them up on the video screen. We're having our nice chat about how things are going. Hey, patient, let's confirm your primary care provider. Find it from the list. Should have searched for a name previously. Betty Davis is one of my favorite PCPs again. What was your current temperature, your most recent temperature? You'll actually see we have ranges that are required. So I can't be lower than 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Otherwise, you'd probably be in not a great state. But their temperature is 101.5. Have you traveled in the last 4 weeks? Yes, I have. Where did you go? Personally, I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica, so we'll just say this patient went to Costa Rica. The ability to have icons and flags alongside your data gives a lot more context to things. Do you have a cough? Yes. Have you shortness of breath? No. And how do you feel? Fine, meh, really bad. I'm feeling meh today. So we can have icons alongside. A huge library of icons are available for you. I think nearing 600 or so, maybe more. And then let's confirm your chronic diseases, diabetes, CHF. We know you have COPD. That's what we see in your medical record in our system. Is that true, patient? Yes, it is. And some additional questions. This is a little silly, but it's also really important because this question didn't exist. These questions don't exist in the EHR, the patient system today. You can create these forms on the fly and pull in relevant information that's critical to capture, and you don't have to wait for that very large company to update their electronic medical record system to give you that field. So have you given yourself a haircut? Not yet. Yes, unfortunately. I actually have given myself my own haircut during a COVID time. When are you available for your next follow-up? We can default in like a week out, or we can pick a new date, and we can put some notes in. So, this patient might be at risk. Review with physician. I submit this, and we're on to our next patient to review. So that is a quick run through of 8 different ways you can use Vizlib Collaboration with teamwork, write-back tables, and input forms. And back over to you, Martin.
That was amazing. Thank you very much, Joe. Actually, very, very exciting. Yeah, let me show my screen now. So actually, yeah, we started off. Joe showed you some of the business cases that you can solve with Writeback. There are plenty more. So before I go in and showcase my bit, which is going to be more technical, hey, actually, I received an email, Joe, just now while we're doing this. And hey, actually, the performance review also came to me, right? Was sent also via email. So, it just shows, guys, that you can integrate Writeback not just with one system, but you can also completely establish a workflow in the back end that then, kicks off or triggers different kind of other bits and pieces that is needed for your business. Also the same thing, here, I was using the same app at the same time, and I saw, hey, Joe was posting some adjustments here. And yeah, just to kind of repeat that, you can post adjustments, or you can multiply your number, or if you want, you can kind of correct it entirely by saying, you know what, it wasn't 130,000, it was 100,000, adjusted as per the meeting. So you see the adjustment is always being calculated on the fly. And if I write it back, have a note, 130,000, I'm refreshing, and you'll see now that the data is reloading, saving, and voila, the number has been updated. Okay, but with a adjustment post here, so fully audited, and permissions and all that beautiful things is something that we will definitely discuss. So a very exciting piece of technology that we've put a lot of thought into. So let's do a little bit, deep dive. What is writeback technically? What's happening behind the hood? And I know a couple of questions have already been posted. I'll try to address them during the demo. Be patient. So let's start with our showcase. Let me refresh this just to have a clear sheet. But ultimately, what are we offering you? We're offering you a tool that is extremely powerful, that lets you edit data, but you can use it in any capacity that you so wish. So in this example, showcases all the 13 input types that we have available with our writeback solution. You can have a text, right, that you can type in here. As Joe has shown, you have a checkbox, a toggle. You can even choose a country, right? So we do it a little bit visually as well. But you can add a category, low priority, a color, a score very often, sliders, for typical what if simulations as well, and numeric inputs. But more importantly as well, not just drop down, but you can also add click expressions here, right? FYI. So we generally just added every little bit here that we could, including tags, which I personally like a lot, because you can say just add a piece of information there, and then by the way, the important question, while I'm editing everything, I can lock my edits. So if I lock my edits, that means that I'm the one who's editing it. Nobody else will be able to edit it at the same time. And that also makes sure that as I'm applying selections and as I'm navigating my dashboards, this doesn't get refreshed. Okay, so I'm writing back my data, it reloads, and that's the basic principle. So let me see if I go to the chips array, or actually to the text, you see now, hello, this is a live demo. So actually any data you write becomes part of a data model. So how does it look like under the hood? So effectively, it's a table, it's an extension. So on the left-hand side, you will see Vizlib Collaboration, which will have 3 elements. You drag and drop the table here, and you basically then start adding. You can add dimensions, measures. You can add as many dimensions as you want. Let's say country. Let's add it, as a text representation here. And then you have various options, right? You can say, in this text example, that actually this is a normal dimension. I don't want this to be editable. So I can make this read only. So it becomes almost like a real table, right? Effectively. You also then have the ability to, let's add another field, such as, for example, number of user IDs. Same principle as well here, right? Do you want this, to be read only, or maybe do you want a default value, right? That's all stuff that you can predefine very, very easily. But more importantly, and that's I think very powerful, you can control how people are editing. You can add a validation field here, right? So let's say I'm adding, let's change this to text for a second. And then you'll see here, we'll add a validation key that this has to be alphanumeric, right? So if somebody comes in here and start typing a random text, okay, actually, required, yes. Let's see if that works. Oh, actually, alpha. I think that is fine. It's searching for a text. I think if I add character, see, oh yeah, that's what alphanumeric means. Numbers are included. Apologies, but if you start adding, special characters, it immediately drops. Hey, this is an invalid value. As a matter of fact, if you put an email here, then you start just writing a random text. No, I need an email address. There you go. Okay, so you can control what is being input, and which is particularly important as you're writing back to a database to a predefined schema. Okay, and you you can say, okay, maybe I don't want to measure, I don't want this to be driven off my data model. I just want to add additional information, additional columns. You can easily do so by just adding this as a column, okay? So you can add here score. Now, the way this works is that you then, after you've created your user interface, you have to decide where you want to write back to. And for this, we have developed several writeback types, okay? And we'll go into those more detail. So as default, you can write back to a QVD, CSV, or text file. You don't need a server. This is a serverless version of writeback, okay? You don't need to install a server. All you do is, write back to a folder of your choice. You can write back to a server for a more scalable solution, right, in a database where you actually, have archiving, logging, and many more options, in which case, you just have to define, the server settings, and the Vizlib server is something that I will showcase to you shortly. Okay, but typically I recommend start with QVDs. You'll see a little bit why. And more importantly, we also are sending data to REST endpoints, okay? If you have any kind of other middleware or microservices around your organization, or even nowadays, every single organization, every single product that is out there has APIs, you can actually send a post or GET request with JSON format or parameters with all the data that you're writing back to. So with this, you practically have unlimited integration possibilities, right? And very important, however, within Vizlib, writeback is always requires a reload if you want the data to be part of a data model. So it's not really real time, okay? But you can always decide, do you want to reload the app or do you not want to reload the app? Do you want to reload at the same time or not? You can decide that because it doesn't always make sense, right? Again, we give you the control. However, if you wish to have something which is more real-time discussions, then Vizlib Collaboration is the right solution for that use case. Last but not least, header settings, you name this, Vizlib, you have a lot of options when it comes to coloring or changing anything else that you want to see, right? So you brand it to your style. So let's take a real use case, right? So I've created a dashboard. Imagine you guys want to start with Vizlib Writeback. You have a dashboard and you want to get started. How do you get started? So you have a dashboard with an existing table. Okay, some data is there, and you then decide, actually, I want to start adding some comments and some more information, user-driven information, actions on my analytics and insights on top of the existing data model. So what I do is I go to custom objects, collaboration, and I want to take the Vizlib Writeback table, drag and drop, and I convert this to a writeback table. Voila, I can now edit all the information. Almost. As a matter of fact, I don't want to edit any information here, so I will go into my individual dimensions and settings, and I'm going to make sure it is not editable. I don't want anybody to fiddle around with these things, right? So I'm going to make everything read-only that I don't want people to change, including quantity and stock. Where is it? Here we go. And now I want to, however, add a new column, which is called, commentary. Oops, let's add a text that is called commentary, almost. So you see here, write it. Wonderful. And I will add one more column, which will be the score, the rating, actually, as a matter of fact. This is basically 5 stars. Let's put it here. Let's give it score. Here we go. You can choose to have different icons if you want to. Let's use, apples here for the sake of it. But wonderful. So what do we do now? As a matter of fact, the commentary, I want to show you a feature which is bulk editing, right? Sometimes you want to edit something in one go. So all you got to do is enable the bulk editing option, which puts this icon there here, right? So I nearly done everything. I've created my UI. So as a matter of fact, what do I want to do now? Well, now I have to set up my data connection. Where do I write to? Okay, so for this case, I'm going to use my QVD writeback type. I'm going to keep it simple, okay, because most of the time, all use cases are really simple. So now I have to define a data connection, a file name, okay? Actually, if I go into my load script, you see here, I'm actually loading the data. All I need is put the data connection, just generally that part of a string, okay? I put it here, and then I give it the file name that I'm addressing, that I want to write to, and because it already exists, I want to overwrite it. Okay, that's it. And now all I gotta do is start writing back. Let's give snack foods a good score, and let's start commenting. Oh, you see, it's bulk editing, right? If you want to deactivate it though, not a problem. You can just click on this and it will then suppress it. Wonderful. That's it. I write back. I reload the app. And it is now saving. And we're done. Now, interesting thing is my comments disappeared. This is normal because it is now part of my data model. So what I can do is I can either leave it blank, for new comments to be added. But if you want this to be a data-driven user input that you want to edit, very easy. You see here commentary, you drag and drop this, you replace commentary with the underlying dimension. Here's my comment. And then you can do the same thing of my score and drag and drop it here, replace it, replace score. You see here, all my data is now there and I can actually start editing it. And for full information, if you go to the underlying, I've created a tiny little audit trail table, right? You'll see here that if I add this, that the writeback actually also has my user ID and the timestamp, okay? Very important, you can actually add dynamic columns on the fly from Qlik Sense with QVDs and writeback. It's not so easy with SQL because you're required to define the schema, hence why I'm saying always start with prototyping, and then if you move to production, at that point, it's typically a very fixed kind of case. Now, Now, let's say I want to add new data, right, which is a typical use case. So what I can do is I can use my writeback table, right? It's already nicely defined. I can right-click here, I can duplicate a row, or I can add a whole new row if I want to. Yep, I need to lock down my field, right? Very important, so nobody else messes up, and then I can start editing it, right? And add new data to my data file, right? But sometimes you want to make this much more easier. You actually want to have a nice little UI that is actually much more data-driven, like the examples that Joe showed. So that's why we have a separate extensions or solution for this purpose, which is called the input form, which is all about adding new data. And this is actually a nice one. We had so much fun actually developing this. So if I drag and drop this, it gives you a blank canvas, no table, but just a blank canvas. And now you got to do, come in here and start adding input types and start building your input form almost like a Lego brick, step by step. You can add rating here and many more things one by one, right? And then ultimately create your own input type as you want it on the fly, right? Now, here's the thing, right, with Vizlib. This was actually an icon. Yeah, it's an icon here. So this is the thing with Vizlib. You can create your things on the fly, or we also have a very friendly layout wizard. So if you want to group these things, you can actually come in here and you can say, all right, let's add a new group. And I can say main input fields. And then I drag and drop all my little bits and pieces here dynamically. Or, if you want to, I can add a new field directly from the, from the UI. It's not a problem either. And I can, work this way. Now, the thing is that is, really important in this example is, again, you can, control the output. You control where you write back, be it a server, a text file, a REST endpoint, or even a variable, which I will showcase in a bit. But yeah, for those of you who actually, and the interesting thing is, as you're engaging, as you're building more input files, we appreciate that sometimes it takes time or you need inspiration. That's why we have templates. You click here, and I'm not sure, some of you know templates, but as a matter of fact, you click on this and you can choose from some of the available templates that either are available or your team has actually created. So I see here, there is a sales report, an order request form that was created by my team. So there you go, it's pre-created for you, and that's it. You can get started and kick this off and use it in any way you want. Last bit I want to show you is that you can actually, and this is why this is powerful, the input fields can be static, but you can also let them be driven by Qlik expressions, right? So it can actually be from your data model automatically populated. So you don't need to submit every little thing. You can just make selections. You see if everything is submitted correctly and click on submit and then write that back to your database, right? Very powerful. And as I mentioned, you can send it to a REST endpoint. Zapier, for example, is a very nice one, or email, Salesforce, or really nice, you can also use a variable. Now, the variable editor is actually super powerful, and the COVID-19 simulation dashboard is actually an example where basically you're just updating variables in a nice user-friendly way, right? So that's possible as well, and that means, again, no server needed. but it's very powerful for what-if simulations. But if you want to move over to the Vizlib Server, if you want to deploy this, if you want enterprise-grade security, that's all available today as well, where practically you have a whole dedicated installation on the same Qlik Sense environment that you have. You just run an installer, and after 3 minutes, it's all there for you. And in there, you can manage all your integrations. You can manage the security with Qlik Sense. And the beautiful thing is, we've also implemented security rules that actually are very similar, actually the same, like in Qlik Sense. As a matter of fact, they work together. You can create logs. You can actually see your system server. Oops. You can actually add more integrations if you want to. Nobody said you only need one database. You can add a second database if you want to. You can add as many databases as you want. Up to you, because that means on collaboration, you have different flows. You have different streams. So let's say there is this finance team that is writing back. They can be working on a different writeback stream in parallel to the sales team without ever seeing each other's comment, without ever having each other's systems interfering at all. You have a lot of flexibility to add as many streams as you want, assign it to an integration, and even define the user access specific to that.
And Martin, I just wanted us to keep an eye on the clock because we have, I don't even know if we have a count of the questions that have come in. You're addressing a number of them on the fly, but I want to make sure we can also still have a little bit of a QA before people need to leave.
Thank you. Right.
Okay.
Last bit is workflows as well. You can create as many workflows as you want. Multi-approval is coming as well with permissions. You get the drill. So, but for more detail, please do organize a demo with us. I think that is needed in more detail. Have a technical discussion if needed. But to summarize, Vizlib teamwork, you discuss in real time with your data, directly in Qlik Sense by preserving context, bookmarks. Vizlib input form allows you to submit new data very easily to any kind of system. Also Qlik variables and QVDs. Vizlib Writeback table, not real time, but editing of Qlik data directly from a published Qlik Sense app. And last but not least, if you want to, you can use our Vizlib server for more enterprise grade deployments, 100% offline and better management. So yeah, so before we go into questions, very important. Also, we're far from done. As of today, we actually have 12 engineers working on the solution, and we will be adding more to them. As I mentioned, we're 63 people at Vizlib, so we have a lot of appetite and ideas. But just to give you some ideas, we'll be including more destinations, Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery. We'll be adding, advanced workflow logics, but on the Vizlib table, Writeback table, we'll be introducing more formatting options. You know this from the Vizlib table. It will just, migrate these things over. And one thing I'm personally very interested in, a Google Chrome plugin, which allows you to take your conversations outside, including subscriptions and notifications. So with this, we are coming slowly to an end to our presentation, and we are going to be open for questions. Before we do start with questions, perhaps a question to everybody, like what kind of demo did you like the most so far, or use case? We have one more poll that we will be firing off. We have correcting data in Qlik Sense, adding new data, capturing data, or updating data models on the fly. And we see, the answers are very, very versatile and, very useful to us as well. I'm pretty sure we can double the number of use cases in Qlik Sense with Writeback. And it's good to see that you guys have already something in mind. Wonderful. Thank you. So before we go into questions, would like to address some questions ourselves, right? FAQ, how are we going to license this? Right, so Vizlib Collaboration, all these individual solutions will be part of the existing Vizlib Collaboration product. Okay, as always, we've been adding more to existing products. That's the case now, what's happening. So if you are an existing Vizlib Collaboration product, a customer, this will be included for you at no extra cost. The second bit is for all of you who are not yet a Vizlib Collaboration product, this will be fully launched in early June. However, we are already running betas with existing customers. Reach out to support. We're more than happy to do a detailed demo and even offer an early testing phase. Bear in mind, existing customers will have priority. However, we'll be working very, very strongly on making sure that everybody's covered. Very important pricing. We want to be transparent. Pricing is as $5 per user per month. and more importantly, no implementation and installation fees, and test servers included at no extra cost. One big benefit of being Vizlib is that we're big, we have a lot of customers, we have economies of scale, hence we are able to offer you what we think is hopefully a very competitive pricing. And on the technical side, the data, where is it stored? That's your choice. CSV, text, QVD, SQL database for a more scalable solution, or just a REST endpoint, you decide. We give you the tools, you do the magic. And which brings me to the point, again, which I like to emphasize. One thing at Vizlib is always important. We keep things simple. So do you need a server? No, you don't. You can start Vizlib Writeback without a server by writing to CSV or QVD files. And then as you see and as you progress, you can then release this to production on a database of your choice. Which also means this will be working on Qlik Sense Cloud for those of you who are interested. So with this, I thank you very much for the initial attention, and we are opening up for questions. And I'm back now on the webcam with Joe. While we're waiting for the questions and us selecting them and looking at them, we'd like to run a final poll. That you can click on answer, and we are now going to go through the questions in more detail and see which one we will be able to answer for everybody.
Yeah, and I've tried to find some patterns while you were covering the last few bits, Martin. Some of the things were around partial reloads, full reloads. When you press that button, what happens and what can you make happen with it?
Right, so basically you're kicking off a reload, right? So you are practically then running through the script, and you can basically do whatever you want. You have to, of course, in the script, read the data source where you're writing back to. Very often it's easiest if you have a star load, although star load is always dangerous in case you add new fields and then it becomes an unexpected synthetic key. However, we kept it very simple, and we also will have a tiny little wizard generation. So you can, when you create your table, you can right click and export your script that you can then copy paste. There is our idea.
Let's see here, a few other kind of integration things. You showed Slack and email. There are questions about, do you work with Microsoft Teams? I know a lot of our organizations are starting to roll out Teams, and absolutely, that's been part of collaboration for a little while now. We just didn't show it today, but we have customers using that. Let's see, where are the QVDs stored? Some questions about that, because we talked about that for rapid prototyping. I think you covered that with the data connection. So it's going to store it alongside the data model. And you can use your tiered infrastructure if you have that too, to save off a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 type of QVD if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, so it's basically any kind of data connection that you have in the load script, you just cross-reference it. And if you're the one reloading, make sure you have access to it. But typically it's either on disk or on Dropbox. You decide, it is up to you.
And then is writeback to the REST APIs, is that available serverless?
Yes, doesn't require a server. So you just define the endpoint that you want to, and you can practically then, and that's truly, guys, where the magic happens, right? Because ultimately what you're doing, you're sending data from Qlik into a system of your choice, and you can fire off workflows, emails, checkpoints, fallbacks, anything that you want. And that's actually a very interesting implementation.
Let's see here. Do you have any that you want to throw out there? I'm kind of scanning through. Covered that. I saw some related to some industries. I really wanted to show a retail one in particular, because we know that those businesses have been affected tremendously. And so a shopping cart experience. When I was doing little feedback sessions with people, they saw the input form especially be a way to capture information on the fly, new questions, and not need to go out to a third-party survey system where you don't know where the data is getting stored. Is it secure in SurveyMonkey or Google Docs or Google Surveys? So here you can bring that survey type of informational interview directly into your application. If you're an OEM customer, you can also offer this up on your portal and have new input fields for your customers.
Cool. One question is if we write back to SAP or specific other systems. So we actually had 2 requests on that. Question is, what kind of SAP? What's the workflow that you want to implement? Can it be implemented with a REST endpoint? Question mark. But if we see enough demand, we will add this to our little roadmap list. Again, I'm not sure, if that was seen, but ultimately, we prioritize depending on the biggest demand. These are ideas that we definitely want to complete, and then we will prioritize depending on the requirements. And yeah, I'm pretty much a big fan of Snowflake myself, so I can see that, at the beginning of the list.
There's a few around APIs, and we didn't really even showcase all of the capabilities there because it's just endless, but using the REST API type of connector, you can write the data to another business system. We send things to Slack. We have a CRM that we use. We can send directly to that. So if you have a Salesforce or a Pipedrive, those things that tend to have REST APIs, you can post the data directly to that system so that you're storing back into the source system. And we'll continue to work on additional examples around those very common business systems.
So just a couple of technical bits, because I see in the questions here. So if you have writeback and you have 2 people editing the same data, especially in the writeback table, you have a tiny little lock, right? And that lock mechanism is basically locking the writing concept to yourself. So it's preventing other people from being able to do so. You need the server installation for this, however, right? Because obviously you need to have that mechanism. It doesn't work serverless, but that's where the lock is. Means also when you're writing back to a QVD, guys, you can add as many new fields as you want, right? One big hurdle of writeback has always been, I have to define the field, I have to go to the DDBA. Is the field ready? Yes, okay, no, QVDs can be done, adjusted dynamically. And that's the beauty of writeback. And that's the beauty Vizlib and our low-code approach, make it easy to use, and then if you find it useful, you can then release it to production on our Vizlib server.
We might need another hour to get through all these questions, so I think what we can do, they're all saved off. We will get back. Our team will divide and conquer, and want to thank everybody too. Martin, great job taking us through how to build this stuff out. Thanks everybody, and I think we have, you have anything else right at the end there?
Well, I guess, thank you everybody. Watch this video and watch this space.
We need more visual liberty, more off-the-charts thinking, more power together. Because more together is more insights to action, more momentum, more trailblazing change to deliver more traction, interaction, more joy. To drive more value from data in patient healing, champion building, money making, future planning, or tech taming. We need more power together. Vizlib for Qlik, more data brilliance.